All right. Hi, guys. This is Morgan, and today I'm going to be sitting down with Monte Mohr with Realty One Group, Music City, to get his story and his journey through real estate. So, Monte, what or how long have you been doing real estate, and what kind of made you want to get into it?
Well, I share a lot of that in chapter one, Morgan, where I got involved over 36 years ago. Actually, this month it'll be 36 years. And so I'll let everybody go to that one so they get the full impact of this former factory worker learning what a six-figure income looks like. Um, but what I wanted to talk on this one was really a second chapter. And the second chapter, the core of the purpose of the second chapter is really, I think, at the end of the day, to encourage agents that though we're at one of the I think, most challenging times in the industry, and again, I say that from a perspective of 36 years, that we've all got to learn to think out of the box. And that's the moral of the story that I've learned. And that's how I got started. When I shared my chapter one was how writing rent to own on a piece of cardboard started, the phone ringing after a year of almost starvation in the industry. Well, in 2000 first of all, I was in Florida from 1984 to 97 in the business, and I was married to somebody at the time that wanted to get into the music industry. And so I agreed to walk away from being the number one agent in that county to I found out shortly after moving to Nashville that nobody cared about what I had accomplished in Florida. No, nobody cared. This is kind of a good old boy environment a little bit, but and so my first step was to hook up with somebody who had a moving train so I could work with their momentum, because I learned very quickly that momentum is a key factor for success in this industry. But I was doing really well and making really about $500,000 household income, and then in 2007 I decided that I needed to own some real estate, because I'm 67 in a couple of days, and so I decided to buy real estate. Well, I bought $1 million. I closed on $1 million worth of real estate in December of 2007. Within a month of that decision, the worst part of that purchase was the day before that closing on that $1 million worth of real estate. My lender at the time was part of Countrywide, and a lot of folks that were in the industry remember Countrywide. They were doing no document loans, and I think they were called Ninja loans, no income, no credit, or something. I forget what Ninja stood for. But anyway, the point is, I owned way more real estate than what I should have. And the day before closing, he said, well, you can't buy this $1 million worth of real estate without putting another 10% down. I was trying to buy them all with 10%. He said, you own too many real estate homes. So I scrambled for the next 24 hours because I wanted to be a man of honor and close on these properties I had pending. And so I borrowed and took from tax accounts and everything else another $100,000 to close on these properties. And I told my wife at the time, don't worry, we'll just continue to sell real estate, not a big deal. Well, again, coincidentally, closing on those $1 million worth of homes that month and not having deep pockets, it was another 3 months before I made another dollar. Okay, that's how we fell off of a cliff. I mean, it was awful. From there, it began spiraling down worse and worse and worse to finally in 2011, I started liquidating properties, and by now I'm going through a divorce, and I've got terrible back problems. I can barely walk, and when I'd show a listing, I would have to go, sit down somewhere, and I would tell my clients, look, I'm not trying to be rude. I'm having a hard time right now physically, and as a need for my third back surgery. So while that's going on, the month of my back surgery, this was really a kind of a climax in my life. A month from my back surgery, I ended up getting audited by the IRS, not just once, but twice. It seemed like everything was crashing down on me. And the day before the worst thing, probably the day before my back surgery, which was really a major one that time, it was the third time, my 15-year-old boxer died in my arms. He was my best friend, okay? And so I had to go out and bury him with, that kind of back problem, because I couldn't go to the hospital without taking care of that. And while I was in the hospital waiting for, going through that surgery, when I went in, I had $20,000 of transactions pending. And when I came out of the hospital a week later, I had nothing pending. It all had died. And so by December of that year, I was a month later, I didn't know what I was going to do. I had to make a decision a few months prior to that I was going to continue my marketing rather than make my own mortgage payment. And as somebody who wanted to, at least appear as a successful realtor, that was a really embarrassing thing to consider, going through a short sale or going through, a potential foreclosure. I'd become a professional or a certified short sale expert, whatever they're called. But I decided, after dealing with a couple of banks, I'd rather sit in the dentist chair all day than to deal with banks. So I started trying to think out of the box of how can I help my clients at a time where very little was selling, and banks were dropping their prices, and I mean majorly. And so one day, one of my clients was just really frustrated. They were trying to sell their home so they could buy another home. And I said, look, Frank, if I waive my listing portion of my fee, will you reduce your price equally or more than that so we can give you a competitive edge? And he said, well, sure, I will. And I said, well, you promise to buy your next home with me if I do that? And he said, yes, I will. And so it started a business model of not charging anything for the listing side of things, with the anticipation or with the commitment that they would buy their next home with my help. And for that first one, I'll never forget that first closing. I watched the other agent, who in my opinion hadn't done a whole lot to help out in that transaction, walk away with an $18,000 commission, which would have changed my life at the time. I mean, things were bad enough that I had to reach out to my 23-year-old son and borrow $3,000 just to pay for the basics. That's how bad things were financially. And anyhow, I watched that $18,000, or the agent walk away with $18,000, me with a handshake. And it really tested me. Was I really serious about doing this, working this hard? Closing the transaction, it takes a lot of effort, but to do something that took this much effort and not receive anything for it, that was really a step of faith when I needed it so much. Well, anyhow, that started a progression of other people finding out, and before long, I had a team of agents helping me. And over the next 6 years, my small team and I ended up selling $100 million worth of real estate without charging anything, just for the opportunity then to sell another $100 million worth of property, And so it really, and now today, my whole career now, as far as my sales now, are still coming from those people who I'd earned the right for their knowing me and liking me and trusting me, because I had saved them millions of dollars during that period of time. During that time, I had a lot of agents upset with me because they were blaming me for their lack of business, but I was simply trying to make a difference in the marketplace and work from a place of compassion and abundance, trying to work from a place of abundance, which eventually turned that way. But the point is, I've never seen in my career of 36 years, I've never seen a more competitive market. It's one thing to have, I don't know about your guys' area, but in ours, we have the IA buyers are really strong, and the flat fee companies are strong, and these big companies, these big tech companies, are getting a lot of traction. And though I don't like them, I still am trying to encourage our agents to always be thinking out of the box, always be thinking about, okay, these entities who are not as personal and caring as we are speaking apparently to a pain point. And as real estate professionals, I think it's really crucial that we think about those pain points that these other companies, which we don't like, are getting this traction. I mean, for instance, my belief is Redfin is speaking to the pain point of bottom line. You need to have something, a tool in your toolbox that speaks to the consumer's bottom line. Now, I can sit here and argue as well as anybody that I'm worth a 5 to 7% commission. I can argue that all day long, but the facts of the matter is that the consumer doesn't care about that. They're dialed into that station that all of us are, and that's WIIFM. What's in it for me? And so we have to learn to think out of the box and say, okay, the consumer doesn't care about the fact that I'm worth 6%. And the other thing is, I heard I had a guest speaker recently, and he said, the local real estate professional needs to get out of their head that they have to hit a home run every time at bat, meaning a home run being a 6% commission or a 3% commission or whatever it is that they're in their company or their own mindset is requiring, because the times have changed. We need to be okay with a single or a double or whatever, from a standpoint of working, not letting that keep us from the opportunity. Because my belief is my sign is worth more in somebody's yard, regardless of commission amount, than it is sitting in my garage. And those are basically the two options. It's either out there being productive or it's sitting in my garage, So that's what some of the things that we try to teach our agents, for instance, like the iBuyer, the local iBuyer here, just one of them that's so well known here has grown 1,800% in the last 12 months. We have to pay attention to that. The other part of that we have to pay attention to is, part of my job security as a real estate professional has been in the past, if somebody wants to look at a house, they have to call me or somebody like me, Well, now this one particular iBuyer is teaching people that they don't need to call an agent. They just walk up to the house, key in a number, the door opens. I was in one of those companies' listings not long ago showing it, which I hate doing, but I know I either have to do it or have somebody else, have them go to somebody else. There were 3 other families in there, unrepresented. And so one thing I try to tell my agents, look, when these companies list a property, I would be hanging around, and just happen to have some other, material to show these buyers that are unrepresented, because they're being taught by some of these companies that they don't need a realtor, because inside the house then is data, this propaganda saying, hey, you can buy your house from us and sell it with us, and we'll even give you a 3-day late stay, so you don't have to be rushed moving out. So anyway, my point of all that is, I think it's really important to be aware of the competition, be aware of those pain points that these companies are getting this kind of traction on. Because I think at the end of the day, the consumer would rather work with an agent. They'd rather work with somebody local. They'd rather see the funds from a transaction stay local. But if they're not feeling like they're getting their value that we're charging, then we need to do 2 things. First of all, reconsider what we're worth. The other part is make sure that there's no question when they do work with us that we were a worthy investment and not just a necessary expense. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that we've been guilty of in the past, and that is not making sure the consumer knows that. So that's kind of an overview of why I did what I did, and we made a difference in hundreds of people's lives, and we kept people from losing their homes. I mean, there was so much reward in that. I think the biggest reward, though, for me is what it did for me personally, because you can't give away $1 million when you're losing your own home, or thousands. I mean, I was hundreds of thousands of dollars when you're hurting that level yourself, and do it with a heart of gratitude, without without it making a big difference in you. So
that's awesome.
that's my story. A little different than an average, probably the usual story, probably, but I think it's important. I think it's important. I mean, I share parts of my stories with my agents mainly so that they know that, look, I'm convinced more than ever that the battle we have to win is way bigger than the battle outside of between, the buyer didn't come through, or the who's president, or interest rates, or all the things that we look at as our problem. Our real problem is winning the battle between our ears, and that comes with constantly feeding ourselves the proper information. One of the quick story I want to share, if you don't mind, and that is when I got out of the hospital after that back surgery, I was trying to find a Christmas gift for the church I was belonging to. I was on the board member, so I had to find a book, and I found a book called I have it here somewhere, but anyway, it was called The Prosperity Bible. And the Prosperity Bible is a compilation of 18 books on the topic of success. And the number one book in that compilation is Think and Grow Rich. Have you read it yet?
I haven't. No, I'll have to
Okay,
get it
well,
though, for sure.
it's written by a man Napoleon Hill, who was commissioned to study successful people back in 1920s, okay? And he was commissioned to do that without any promise of pay. And he didn't have money to get back home. But for the next 20 years, he studied wealthy people. And it's not about, the reason why this book means so much to me, it's not about getting rich, it's about living a wealthy life. But anyway, so I got back into that. And in that process, I learned this thing called a self-confidence formula. And that self-confidence formula connected with me at a time where I was losing everything. I couldn't hardly walk, and all these challenges I had. I was so excited about this. This is why I want to share this story. I was so excited about connecting to this. I've got it written right here. I've got it on my walls. I mean, I really owe a lot to this. Okay, let me share just a minute with you. Okay, the last part of the formula. I won't read the whole thing. There's 5 steps. It says that I fully realize that no wealth or position can long endure unless built upon truth and justice. Therefore, I will engage in no transaction which does not benefit all whom it affects. I will succeed by attracting myself the forces I wish to use and the cooperation of other people. I will induce others to serve me because of my willingness to serve others. I will eliminate hatred, envy, jealousy, selfishness, and cynicism by developing love for all humanity, because I know that a negative attitude toward others can never bring me success. And I will cause others to believe in me because I will believe in them and in myself. And it goes on to say, I will sign my name to this formula, commit it to memory and repeat it aloud once a day with full faith. It will gradually influence my thoughts and actions so that I will become a self-reliant and successful person. And I signed this January 12th, 2012. I signed it when I didn't have anything. I was losing my home. I didn't have anything going on except a confidence now that was being built. And I read it every day, like you said to do, every single day. And I got I started believing to a point. I walked into my broker's office with this big book. This book is 1,272 pages. Again, it's a compilation of 18 of the most successful books on the topic. But I said, David, I'm going to sell 77 homes. Now, the year before, I was his #1 agent in that office, and I had sold personally 44 homes. And I said, David, I'm going to sell 77 homes. And he laughed at me. He literally laughed at me. And I walked up to his desk and I said, David, I'm serious. You can take it. I had this big old book under my arm. Okay, I look kind of silly. I said, you can take it to the bank. I'm going to sell 77 homes. He goes, okay, Monty. Okay, I get it. Okay, you're serious, you know. And, you know, people have asked me that I've shared that story with, why 77 homes? And I said, well, the only reason was I knew what my average commission amount was. And I knew that I needed to make $350,000 that year just to start digging myself out of the hole that I found myself in. Well, long story short, I ended up closing that year 77 homes.
That's awesome.
And it still means a lot because I really had nothing to accept. I mean, I don't give it all the credit to this because I worked hard.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, so that started and during that time is when I was selling homes for free, and I was working hard and not bringing anything home. But at the end of the day, now, you know, and I think it's prepared me for the business model that we're in now with Realty One Group, because, you know, it's interesting to create an environment, work with a business model that I'm giving everything to my agents. We give them 100% of their commission plus everything else they've ever had before at their whatever office they're at. I don't care where they're at. We provide at least that much, if not more, plus 100% commission. And I think it's that background that I just shared with you that has empowered me to do that, you know, with a heart that is grateful, with a heart that is, you know, there to serve them and to honor them, because I've been there. 95% of my experience as a broker hasn't been being a broker, it's been in the trenches, serving people and working as a real estate professional. So I really get it. I feel their pain. I think that's part of the reason why I can embrace this model with such a grateful heart, that because I was prepared in that other situation that I shared with you.
Yeah, so what advice would you give to the people that are in that current situation now?
Well, first of all, again, I think you have to think out of the box, and that's one of the things we teach at our company is have know the person's pain point and then have an answer to that pain point. Be more interested in answering that pain point than you are about convincing them how much you're worth, because at the end of the day, they're going to care less and less about that, because, and I'm not downing somebody who can hang on to their commission at whatever rate that might be. I'm just saying times have changed. They certainly have around here anyhow. We haven't had billboards all over town before saying, I'll do it for 1%. I mean, you can sit around and talk about your value all day long, but at the end of the day, the consumer doesn't care. The second thing I think that's really important, and this is a self-serving plug, okay? The self-serving plug, well, not necessarily self-serving, because there's other 100% companies out there. But when the downward pressure of the real estate commission continues in its direction, and I don't see that changing anytime soon, then the importance or the value of receiving 100% of your commission only goes up. Because if I'm going to have to negotiate my commission, or if I'm going to have to pay some Zillow or not Zillow, but Amazon or whoever, a referral fee or a relocation, whatever, then I sure don't want to do that from a 70% split. So, I mean, it makes more sense to the value of, if I can capture everything that I'm used to, then it only makes sense to try to get 100% in order to at least net what I'm used to making. Otherwise, you start have to scratch your head, well, why am I doing this? If I'm on a 70% split, then I'm paying these big referral fees. It's just not worth it. And that's, I think, is going to affect our value to the consumer that much more. As a matter of fact, I'm so convinced, this is a little bit probably unusual from your perspective, but I'm so convinced that what we offer is as good, if not better, than every other company out there. That I've recently I'm about to share a challenge on our weekly radio show, actually this coming Sunday. And that challenge is to all real estate agents here in Middle Tennessee: if we don't provide at least as much as you're getting right now in tools, in technology, and in service, let alone bottom line results, I will write a check to you on the spot for $1,000. That's how much I believe in what we're doing, and that's how much I believe in the importance of the direction that we're going as an industry.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how much I believe in Realty One Group, in what we are offering to the local professional. Pretty crazy, huh?
Yeah, that's awesome. Very
$1,000.
cool. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing your story, Monty. That was very powerful and inspirational. Anything else you want to add to the end of this?
Yeah, I want to encourage everybody, pick up the book and Grow Rich, open up the faith chapter and look at the self-confidence formula. It's 5 steps, and start reading it, because I think that that's one of the most important things, Morgan, to empower our minds to be able to win that battle, because it's not easy out there, and I don't see it getting any easier. Okay, so I think one of the best things we can do, we're not short of anything as much as, I think, self-confidence, and that's not being cocky, that's being confident. Okay, confident in what we're providing, and confident in the importance of our future. And so I'm a big advocate of our future in the industry, regardless of how it's changing. And I just say we have to be flexible in our approach, and focused on our commitment, but flexible in our approach.
Awesome. Love that. Well, once again, thanks for sharing. Yeah, we will talk to you next time.
All right. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.